Welcome, good evening. This is 10K Project, and as you already know, this is tonight's Bet on Black pitch. We have an amazing founder. I say that every week, but every week I say they're still amazing. So this is no different. Carl is going to join us this evening and talk about the project he's working on. I want to give just a few housekeeping rules before we get started, and then I'll go to Carl's page. Um, as you guys know, once we get to the Q&A section, you're going to put those questions and answers, or the questions, excuse me, in the Q&A section versus the chat. The commentary can go in the chat, but we really like the questions in the Q&A because the chat goes so fast that the questions get lost. And you guys always ask such amazing questions that we don't want any to get past us, right? So thank you guys for joining again this week. Community members, you are awesome for coming out and joining us every single week and celebrating these Black founders. They appreciate you, we appreciate you, and we're just so excited to be a part in your portfolio building journey. So with that said, I will share my screen and show you Carl's campaign page. Carl is on WeFunder. So I shared with Carl that we've been on WeFunder's site quite a bit. So we're really familiar with the lay of the land, but I always want to go there and show you so that you can see where everything is. So as you can see, there's always that presentation video. I suggest you look at that. Carl has already raised $89,009 from 67 investors. He is a future equity deal is what the terms are. And when we go to the details, you'll be able to see here his financial forecast at a glance. You've got his detailed financials listed here. You've got his risk. You know, I don't know that we talk a lot about the risk, but I really want you guys to start paying attention to that section when you're doing your due diligence. You know, I love this section because the founders are telling you where their vulnerabilities are. And it's a beautiful, I think, bird's eye view into what we know they're going to try to mitigate against, right? So Carl's working really hard to make sure these risks don't occur. And so I love that they're listed here. And I don't know that we've ever called those out before, but I really want you guys to start paying attention to them. We've got other disclosures listed here. As you continue to scroll down, how the money's going to be used. I know you guys are going to ask that question, so we'll wait and let you ask Carl that question. And then the Form C is listed here as well, okay? And Carl also has some perks. We always like to look at the perks. So he's got some perks as well if you want to check those out. All right. So with that said, I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass it over to you, kind sir. Thank you again for joining us and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tawana, for a really good intro. I really appreciate that. I'll actually go back to the WeFunder page, but first I want to thank everybody for being here. Thanks everybody for having me. And I'll do a quick intro on myself and then we can talk about the company and what opportunities we offer. First off, my name's Carl. I'm originally from Haiti. So I was not born or raised in the US. I'm the eldest of 4 brothers. And I lived in Haiti for the first 15 years of my life. After that, my family moved to the Dominican Republic, which is right next door to Haiti. That was in 2010, when we experienced a huge earthquake, which some of you may know about. And that's where I did my undergrad in strategy and business. After starting a few businesses there, I exited my positions and moved to San Diego, California in 2019 for my MBA program at the University of San Diego, from which I graduated earlier in May. Now, the whole idea for Hug started there. Since I came to the US as an international student, I had a few issues finding housing because I came here, applied and would get denied because I didn't have any social security number or credit score, right? So when you go to a landlord, they look at your credit, I came up empty and would get denied, or they would make these crazy asks of 3 times the security deposit or pay more rent than the next person, which I thought didn't make any sense because in order to be here in the first place, international students such as myself had to prove to the federal government that we are credit worthy through a lot of documentation. And if everybody's ever done anything with the federal government, you know that it's a pain, especially from overseas. So to get your visa and get all of that, you have to prove your credit worthy. So what I realized is that landlords couldn't really see or understand our background as international students, even though in order to be here, the government again asks us to have the availability of funds for 1 year's worth of living expenses in cash, right? So if my landlord had asked me, okay, pay a year up front of rent, I would have. But since he didn't understand the process I went through to be here, he did not, right? So that's what we're trying to solve with HUGS. That prompted us to start or to create what's called the HUG score. I won't spoil it now, so I'll get into the pitch, because if not, I'll just get right into it. I'll share my screen and let me know when you can see it. Good? Perfect. So as Tawana was saying, this is our WeFunder page. You can also check out the investor panel here on the right, which could answer a few questions that you have, maybe that we don't cover tonight, or that come up, or maybe that you didn't think to ask, right? And also we post our updates here like every other WeFunder page. I recently spoke at a conference, and then we have a summary here that you can check out. And also you can check out what people say on this side, or say something yourself if you like us. We have some of our highlights here, but you can take your time to look at that on your own, and also reach out to us if you have additional questions. You can get my contact info from Tawana, and I'm happy to either answer that through email or set up a separate meeting with whoever desires. So yeah, you can go through the actual campaign, but I'll go all the way to the bottom here where you can find the actual pitch deck. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So HUGS stands for Housing Undergraduate and Graduate Students. And as I mentioned, what we do is we help international students find housing through our proprietary rating process called a HUG score. A HUG score is basically an alternate FICO score for international students that they can use to explain how creditworthy they are and find housing through that. That way we solve sort of the problem of access to housing for international students and avoid a lot of problems. And when I moved here to the US, not only did I experience that, I had a lot of my international student friends who did too, which I thought didn't make any sense, right? Like, international students aren't new. This isn't a new demographic or a new industry. How come we didn't have a solution to safely migrate from our home country to our new home country? You know, we always feel like strangers when we get here, even after going through a grueling process. And this can go on well into our, let's say, our first semester of college or master's program, where we're taking our classes, intense program, but still don't have a place to really live, and we're going from short-term housing to short-term housing. So we ran a survey among international students, specifically mostly in San Diego, but we also had respondents up the coast in California, Florida, and a few other states, where 70% of international students that we surveyed were not able to secure housing at the time they moved here or before they moved here, which is what we want to solve. Through our solution, an international student or some of our customers have already can book a place from outside of the country, because they can see it, apply online, submit all the same documentation that they had submitted to get their visa, for example, and then book the place before they even come to the US. So they can go from home to home instead of from home to I don't know where. Second, of those 70%, 60%, which is the majority, cited that the lack of social security number or credit score was the primary reason for their housing difficulties, really accentuating the problem that because of the lack of credit or the display of credit, we can't find housing, on top of the other challenges that come with finding housing, such as a bad market or no supply. Access to credit is really the main problem. And then of the ones who were able to find housing, 53%, again, a majority, said they weren't satisfied with how they found it. So maybe they went through Craigslist, maybe some of them got scammed, maybe they went through Facebook groups, maybe they went through their university. But the point is that there was no central solution. There was no place to really go. You just had to throw darts and see where you land, and hopefully it was a thing. But this is where we come in. So Hugs wants to be basically a one-stop shop solution for international students, where they can go find landlords who are willing to to post their properties, and then book a place right on the platform without having to go any extra steps. This is something we started doing already this year. In July was when we officially launched, and within a week we already had housed 3 or 4 tenants, right? So the need is really there, and we were able to partner with one university, which I'm gonna state later. So that's basically the solution. And we aim for this to be a very smooth and transitional process where an international student doesn't have to think twice. Like they already have, or we already have enough to go through to even be admitted into a US institution, let alone to come here and then not have an option or even a backup. Because we moved here, I came to San Diego, I knew one person. I didn't have any family here, to back me up or anything. I had one person where I could stay for a week and then figure it out on my own, which is why this now exists, because it really is a pain. Next, we can talk numbers. Now, the market opportunity we have rated. So if you're familiar with those terms, with TAM, the total addressable market, is poised at about $750 million today, and it's growing as the population of international students grow. So this is based off of basically our lease agreements and our customer lifetime value, which I'll get into later. The serviceable addressable market, which is where we calculate we can be within a certain time frame, right? Because as we know, there's about 1.2 million international students today in the US, which is a huge growth. 10 years ago, there was half of that. But so the TAM represents if we captured all of them. But now realistically, if we capture what the international students who don't live on campus, because that's also a factor, then it would be at about $500 million of total addressable market. And what our first goal is to hit that serviceable, obtainable market, which is the people who are most in need, would be the first $100 million in yearly business. And a few things to note, because numbers, anybody can spout out numbers, but a few things to note about specifically the demographic that we cater to is that there is a long-term student population growth. First of all, that's not even talking about immigrant growth, right? Which is also another trend that's going. It's forecasted that about 60% of population growth in the next 10 years is going to be from immigration. So international students, people who come here for work, etc. So if we can also cater our solutions to those demographics, that's another opportunity that we're not even factoring here in the numbers, right? So as I stated before, many international students have liquid funds already available. So the chance of default, or the chance of our algorithm accurately assessing the international student, is very high. So if once we train it enough with enough data that it becomes sort of a brand or a stablemate on its own, then the algorithm can really sell itself, and these numbers can change and improve over time. And there's demonstrated need, but there's also a few things that I want you to know about our sales cycle and our business cycle. It's very predictable and scalable. Predictable meaning that we know and we can track when the bulk of our revenue is going to come, which is right before every semester or quarter in a university, right? So right before the fall semester and right before the spring semester is when international students are traveling to the US and trying to find housing. So if we can build our systems to capture the international students in those moments, then there's nothing really to stop us. But one other thing to note is that once you capture them, it's really recurring revenue, because since our business model is based on a percentage of sales or transactions, every time they pay rent, we also get paid, right? Since we place them at the landlord's place, they pay us a commission every single time they receive rent, right? So that's automatic recurring revenue with every single customer we capture, which I think is a pretty good way to go about things. Now, as far as go-to-market strategy and what we've been up to since our launch, so we have the B2B and B2C side. B2B, business to business, would be with our landlord partners. So first, we create partnerships with local landlords and also with some brokerage firms where they have investors who want to buy a property, and they contact us and say, hey, you're in high demand right now, can you fill this property immediately? So that way we don't have to compete on the rental market to get landlords too much. We get, through our partnerships, basically, if you want to call it exclusive supply, where nobody else is competing for it since we're getting contacted directly. And recently, just a week and a half ago, we got awarded a 24-bedroom friend house in Illinois. So that's gonna start our East Coast expansion, and we had to do no competition for that. It came straight from one of our partners at Compass, which is a brokerage firm, and we're starting to fill that property right now. Then we go through social media, word of mouth referrals. We're working on a referral program to launch in the next 4 to 6 weeks. That's gonna improve our supply. And we're also acquiring partnerships, and when things are fully back in person again, we'll be going to housing fairs, basically, or even organizing them in local markets as we expand. And before I go to here, you can see here on the right that we've gotten our 2 first university partnerships in the last August, September, in the last 2 months, basically. So first, University of San Diego and the University of California, San Diego. Just for reference, UC San Diego is in the top 10 universities in terms of population of international students in the US. So they have between 8 and 10,000 international students. And through them, we can spread through the UC system that has UCLA, UC Berkeley, et cetera, who are also in the top 10 of population of international students. So this partnership, landing that, took a few months, but it was a pretty big win for us. And we're excited to start working with them pretty soon. And then on the student side, which is basically our demand and where my heart lies, to be honest, we have the university partnership. So every time an international student who doesn't go through the university, because we don't want to compete with the university, we want to be a value add. Every time an international student, which is most of them, doesn't find a place at the university, they refer them to us, right? So now the student, it's sort of an automatic funnel. Once we establish the relationship, because the need is so widespread, so the student needs housing, the university needs to place the student, and we need the money, so they send them to us, and it's an all-around solution. I like to create those sorts of solutions that's not like a zero-sum game where someone has to lose for me to win. Here, everybody wins. And then also, we go through our social media, word of mouth referral, and as part of our referral program, we'll be partnering with test prep agencies too, to capture the student even before they get to the university in theory. So someone, let's say, who's still studying to take their test or still going through the process can start looking at us and be referred to us by the prep agency. And then when they get to the university, also get referred. So it creates sort of a top of mind situation where at the end of the day, we're going to be in their mind as a solution. Now, as far as the business model goes and how we monetize, I'm happy to say that we've been able to monetize every single customer that we have. That's by design. So on the student side, like I said, we have think of it as kind of like Airbnb. On the student side, it's free to join. No, nothing to pay. You just join in, no money to apply to places either. because I think that's unfair. I had to pay like $50 a pop every single time I had to apply, and then ended up living somewhere else. So free to join, free to apply, and then it's arranged, but typically to include things like housing insurance and a few other things that they would have to acquire, especially in California. We just provide the all-around solution. The 3.5% we calculate as what they would have to spend a year to get those things done just at 10 different places. We house it under one payment through us. So 3.5% is pretty much covered for, right? So that's all-in-one solution, and most of our listings are all-in-one solutions, like they're furnished, utilities included, etc. So really making it easy, as easy as a few clicks to find a place, right? And on the landlord side, that's where it gets interesting. There is a range of how we negotiate the terms, right? So it goes from a 3.5% to 5% transaction fee on each every time they receive a portion of every time they receive their rent, right? So every single month we're getting paid by every single landlord who's housed a student through us. Now we're working hard for the next few months to launch also our subscription services that'll go from zero to potentially or forecasted $150 a month, right? So depending on the size of the landlord, there will be some features like 3D tours or automated messaging, or sort of adding some ease of use features to the landlord's profiles. And sort of solutions, maybe you get pictures every certain times a month, like professional pictures included in your plan, etc. So we're building those plans, and the percentage of transaction fee will be lower on the higher paid plans, so as to incentivize them. And here on the right, you can see our customer lifetime value, which is basically for the length of when a student is our customer. Average 2.5 years, but let's say from 1 to 4 years. This is how much we can expect to get on a yearly basis.
And it's gone, both on the front and through the back. Even if the paper is held up to the light, even your medical.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thank you. And below that is the customer acquisition cost. A good benchmark, and this is not just for me, this is just in general, if you're going to look at businesses, their customer lifetime value should be at least 3 times their customer acquisition cost to be able to be profitable someday. So we're far over that because of the way our customer acquisition is set up. On the student side, as soon as we get a partnership or a little bit of social media buzz, our customer acquisition cost is very minimal because of the need that exists. Students naturally flow to us, and we always have more demand than supply. So we have more students to house than houses to move them into. So that it's sort of a bittersweet moment where, okay, I know what I'm doing works, but there's still a few people that I'm not able to help yet. And we listen to their stories and all that, and we try to get that as close to matching as possible. But hopefully with your help, we can do it. Next, we were talking about a few detailed financials earlier. Here you can find some more detail in the pitch deck. Pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go through it. Here you'll see the years for the projection. This is at inception, which means basically where we were. Now at the end of year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, what we expect to have. And 3 big ticket items are the revenue, the cost, and net income, which means will we be losing or making money. We expect to be at profitability beginning mid-year 2, which is when we'll be housing about 500-600 students. That'll start from San Diego, then going up to LA, which we're doing right now. And so a bit of an accelerated timeline. And also, like I mentioned, in Illinois. So a lot's happening on this side, but you can run your models, you can ask more questions about this. A few big ticket things here is the average revenue growth, as you can see on the right here, average income margin growth, which is a really big indicator of how healthy a business's model is. This regardless of whether they're profitable or not, because we can choose growth over profitability so that we grow faster. But if our margins are better every year, then as soon as we cut back the growth, we'll be profitable. So that's something to notice. Again, not just with me or our business, but any investment you're going to make. That's a really good thing to ask. And then again, the lifetime value and customer acquisition cost ratio. Next, we have sort of a graphical explanation or display of what we had earlier. This is the revenue and what stages it'll happen at. So at the beginning here, and I'll zoom in just to help people out a little bit. So here you can see at year one, this is a San Diego launch. As we're ramping up towards year two, which this is where we expect to have enough data to have completed our HubScore API, which is our algorithm. Because right now, our main business model, as you saw, is bringing landlords into the platform, bringing students onto the platform, creating that relationship, and then making a profit from that. We want it to be also more scalable, meaning that we can sell the score itself with the algorithm similar to how FICO would, so that even if it doesn't fit in a landlord's business model to be on someone else's platform or in our platform, that they can still ask us for the credit information from the student. Meaning that you go to a regular landlord or a huge apartment complex that only has their own website and doesn't post anywhere, maybe just on Zillow. If an international student goes, they can still run their credit. And every time they run an international student's credit, we get paid, right? So that's revenue even outside of us capturing them and putting them on our platform. So at the end of year two, that's when we see that happening. And that's how you see this ramp up in revenue too, because we'll have basically two businesses in one that we can run in parallel and test out. And then at year three, the national expansion, and that's when we really get into the weeds of it. Because of different states and different housing laws, it takes a little bit to get there. But once we get there, it's pretty much turnkey, and will be pretty exciting. And you can see the same graph based on lease agreements. So you can see the direct correlation between the revenue and the lease agreements that we're able to form for our customer or between our customers. Next, we'll see the product roadmap, basically what we want to achieve and when. So 2021 is the marketplace website, hugsinternational.com. It's under construction. You can look at it, you can get into it. And then 2022, like I mentioned, the HubScore API, which is when we can plug into other businesses' models, and they can just ask us for information. And that's called a query. Whenever they ask us for a score, we get paid. It's basically a no cost to us as soon as we launch it. And then we have the 2023 national expansion after year two, during year three, and then the industry diversification, which means that, and that's more forward thinking, but if we take that score and adapt it to other industries, we can also sell it there, right? So when you have a credit score, they check for it when you're applying for a landlord or a place to stay, but they also check for it when you get a credit card or a loan, right? Or a car, right? So we want to sort of model that in the future too, just so you can understand a little bit of the scope of the opportunity. Because HUGS really solves one point on a spectrum where we solve housing for students, but we can solve more needs for those students because a lot of them, like myself, will need a credit card, will need a car, will need all of that. And then, as I was saying earlier, with the the growth in immigration, if we can solve that same thing, base it off of this for other demographics, so people who come here for work, missionary trips, etc., then it becomes a whole grid of solution of problems that we can solve with very minimal change to the product. So again, high margin. After that, we have some of our competitive advantages over other solutions that international students currently are using. So real estate websites, they need a credit score, so automatically it's a no. Social security number, it's a no. Security is moderate, which is sort of ups and downs in it, and I'm sure a lot of us have had some experiences with that. And then internationally friendly on the low, which is why we exist, right? Same thing with Craigslist, except not much more secure. Same thing with Facebook. And then universities on the good side don't require an international student to have a social security number or credit score, because again, they understand how what we had to go through to be here. And they're actually even part of the process. They're the ones issuing the final, one of the final documents called an I-20 that displays all the financial information of an international student. And the security obviously is very high. You can live on campus. Internationally friendly, moderate. Again, because there's a lack of supply of housing. Typically, universities accept more students than they can house. And a lot of times, since international students are in immigration processes, they arrive later than local or out-of-state students. So housing is basically almost full by the time we touch land here. And then HUGs, not to toot our own horn, but we're high on all these scales that we determine. So, but it is a very interesting, very beautiful solution in my mind. And then a little bit about the team. We are mostly a team of international students trying to build for the future generation of international students. I'm here up in the corner, co-founder and CEO. I did, again, my business administration degree in Dominican Republic, and I have my MBA now. This is not my first business. I started two others, official businesses, let's call them, in the Dominican Republic. One was a marketplace for car solutions that I sold before I came here. And then the other one was also in the automotive industry, but was mostly just a dealership, brick and mortar. And then on my right is my co-founder and CTO, Akash, very smart guy from India and lived in Hong Kong for a while, Germany, etc. Very well traveled, and has experience with software development and leads our software team right now, where we have 4 developers on top of the CTO. Then we have Russell, who's from Singapore, who runs our operations. He's our co-founder and COO. He also had his own business back in Singapore, where he sold, I think it was an e-commerce business, sold guitars, was pretty successful at it, exited, and then came also to the US. And then we have Aime, who was born in Puerto Rico, so she's sort of international, but she's a product manager at Facebook also. And we're so lucky we were able to get her. I don't even know how, but she's really passionate, and most of her friends have been international students. She went to Penn State, pretty good school, and we're working to bring her on full-time onto the team as soon as we get the funds to do it. And on the right side, just on a minor note, but still very important, one of our advisors called Tony Malls, he was a 13-year VP at FICO, which is, again, I don't know how to name these people, but they come my way. And he's also a startup founder. So he's been a very instrumental part of knowing how to outline a product that's a credit score, right? Without giving us too much information, but since he has been with the company, has seen so many iterations of the top player in the space, it's good to have that sort of person on our team. And then we have Michael Crawford, who's a USD, University of San Diego alum. He's a really successful local real estate owner and developer in San Diego, and awarded us our first contract. So we got his one of his buildings to partner with us. It was called the Carl, no pun intended. I had nothing to do with the name, but we were able to work with him, right? Things went well, and he said, okay, I'll join your team and we can move this forward. And he's also been a very instrumental part of our business, because since we're not from here, in theory, you can also always spout these ideas. Yeah, this is gonna work, but once you have someone with experience who tells you, this is what a landlord is looking for, I am one. This is what a real estate investor is looking for, I am one. Then he's helped us develop our sales pitches and all that. So that's a pretty good person to have on board. And key milestones. This is as of July. There's a few things that have happened since then, but just to have a few, we acquired now university partnerships in plural, which is really good. And then we grew our team. We were us four, now we're about 12 people, which is great. We had some pre-seed funding acquired, so we raised, just for operational costs in the month of July, our first $15,000 outside of WeFunder, right? But you can see that in our financials. So it's right there for you to see. We won various pitch competitions throughout my MBA and during this year, which awarded us about a total of $30,000 that we've been able to use to really get things started, get all our documentation done, be really clean, have our cap table clean, just really be ready to work and have a few people on board. And we completed an accelerator program by a huge company, HubSpot. You can look them up and look up the program. That was a really fun experience, and we're looking probably next year to do another one with a bigger firm. And this is a few places where we've been featured. So the San Diego Business Journal, Fresh Root Tech, which is a local startup website or blog, I should say, sort of a mini journal, right? But started by some of the bigger exit people in San Diego who want to help startup founders. Mint's Edge, that was a podcast we did with Mint's, the law firm. They're pretty big in the startup space. And of course, my home, the University of San Diego. So really grateful for everybody to feature us there. We've had a few since then, but these are the most notable ones to date. Now, Carl, so what are you gonna do with my money? Here it is. Depends on what we raise, right? So we have a minimum projection of what we've actually sort of reached that already, but we'll land somewhere in the middle. So this on the left side is the 100K goal, right? We raised, like I said, some of that through WeFunder and some of that outside of WeFunder, but we want to finish raising as much as we can through WeFunder. We'll go with intellectual property protection and general counsel. So because of the nature of our business, we can patent our technology, but patents are expensive, right? So that's one of the main things. So patents, trademarks, copyrights, all of that, getting our assets protected, so that we're afraid of we're away from competition or people who could copy us, right? Then there's a technical development. So the structure, the infrastructure, the database, how the score is calculated, our artificial intelligence that's going to, every time someone pays rent, either on time, late, ahead of time, will factor into their score automatically. So that's what we're building currently in tools and servers. $5,000 in administrations, banking, accounting, tax, etc. And $10,000 in sales and marketing, social media ads and generating partnerships, things like these, like swag, etc., and events, and then professional development, perks, training allowances for team members. because we always have to be learning and we can't let the industry outpace us. And then on the right side, if we raise $500,000, then the numbers change a little bit. Still, we'll be pretty aggressive on intellectual property protection because that protects us for 20 years. And could be a competitive advantage, or is what we see as a competitive advantage, since nobody else is really doing that right now. So before we get noticed and copied, we want to protect that. We're going to be very bullish on the development also, because it goes really related to our competitive advantage, which relies on our hug score and the way our technology works. And then later, we'll probably get a small office space. Mind you, everything we've been doing, everything we've achieved has been in a remote environment. So can't wait to do that in person with all of my team now that we're mostly all in San Diego. So that's gonna, I think, boost our performance quite a lot. So that's gonna be banking, accounting, tax, office supplies, rent, etc. This is a forecast for 18 months, by the way, not just 1 year. This is for 18 months. So we'll be running pretty lean, but it protects all of our investments so that when we're valued at a higher valuation later on, we can all get some good results. So then we have the sales and marketing, again, adding on top of what we had before. And then again, perks, training allowances for employees. So now I want to thank you everybody for participating. I'll leave the pitch deck up in case questions relate to it, so I don't have to go in and out of it, but you can also check us on Instagram here. This is our handle, hugs.intl, which means Hugs International. We have a link on our WeFunder here if you lose it, and you can see what we've been up to lately, right? So some other team members that were not featured here, a few other videos and all of that, right? So you can check that out. And if you're on LinkedIn, you can also follow us there as our community is growing. We are basically Hugs, the name on LinkedIn, or you can go to LinkedIn/company/HugsINTL, which means Hugs International. So I'll stop talking now, get a sip of water, and then someone else can take the stage. Tawana?
Wonderful, very thorough, Carl. I'm smiling because when we first met, you reached out to, I think you sent me an email right after we talked and said, hey, it was something about the website. Have you ever thought about doing this with the website? And I think I said, are you in marketing? Because that was a great idea. You said, no, I just solve problems. And I just lit up when you said that. You couldn't see me because we were emailing, but I just lit up. And tonight you have proven that you solve problems, sir. Very wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I'm always in awe of people who don't just complain about a problem, but they absolutely take the time to fix it. And you've done just that. And so kudos to you. Congratulations to you and all the future success that you and Hugs will have. So thank you. And thank you for sharing this with us tonight, because I feel like we have just been blessed by this and by you. So thank you. To the community members, please put your questions. I see we've got a few, but please put your questions for Carl in the Q&A section so that we can get any more. I don't know what else you guys can ask because he was very thorough. I can't imagine what else we're going to ask him, but we'll come up with something. Yeah. All right, let's see. We've got two in here. Rachel says, she says, is this like Airbnb, but for houses? Does he have a database that the students' information are going to be housed? And how and why would landlords know about Hugs? So 3 separate questions. So let's tackle the first one. We'll leave this up and break it up. Is this like Airbnb, but for houses?
I can see the correlation, and that's a way that's, you can apply to easily understand it, but we're a bit deeper than that. So Airbnb's model is vacation housing. We have a host. It's not really a landlord, it's a host and a guest, and they meet or they interact for a set period of time, typically 2 weeks or under, right? And that's that. And maybe they come back, maybe they don't. For us, it's long-term housing. So this is going to be someone's home, right? This is going to be someone where they live, and that's on the surface. But what we're really solving, we're solving the housing issue with that surface. But on a second level, what we're really solving is the access to credit issue for the international students. So because we get, again, leading to your second question, their information, or we're able to calculate their score and know how creditworthy they are, they can use that score to go elsewhere, right? So that it's, again, to summarize, on the surface, a little similar, but for long-term housing. But on a second level, we're solving the credit issue, not just finding someone a place, because anybody can really build housing marketplace. This is just us going deeper into the problem.
Very good. And then do you have a database that the students' information is going to be housed?
Yes, so at the beginning, we do have a database. It's based on MySQL, which is pretty standard, and we put it behind a lot of security walls, if you might add. But the idea is that when we're big enough, large enough, successful enough, we can actually tap what's called the SEVIS database, which is what schools use and other government institutions use to get the same data we would be getting from the students, right? Since we don't have sort of the muscle now, we get it from the students who need it, right? But once we become a solution or big enough, we can sort of get into the SEVIS program, which is where we'll get the same information, but the students will just provide us with one number, which is called their SEVIS number. Think of it as a social security number for international students. That way, we don't have to house their data, right? We just have to process it, calculate it, and we just keep the score. So whenever someone asks us for their score, we have their score, but we're not liable for holding all of the information. So that's what we're building towards to get to.
Very good. And Rachel's final question is, how and why would landlords know about hubs?
Well, that we can look at this slide. For the how, these are strategies on how we onboard our landlords. Why ranges from person to person or from institution to institution. But typically there are 3 needs: either high tenancy, low vacancy, high tenancy, which is also low vacancy, more money per rent, or longer term rates. So one of the things we do, especially with our brokerage partners, when they find an investor who has a house or wants to monetize it, we can master lease it. So that way, with the landlord, we have a 2-3 year deal where they know they're getting money for sure, and we're the ones sort of collecting the upside of placing the students in the property, regardless of the length of their lease. Right, so we cater to, depending on the landlord, either we get them, we fill up their property, or we get them a premium depending on market conditions, or we lease the house for the place or the property for a long time. So that's what's worked the most for us so far.
Very good, thank you. Chris says, can you share the city of the property in Illinois and what campus it's close to?
Yeah, so that's in DeKalb, and it's Northern Illinois University, NIU. That's where we'll be right now, and we can get into more details sort of outside. You can reach out to me. And if you're out there willing to partner with us in some way, I'm happy to have that too. And we have someone on the ground now over there as of last week, so pretty good prospects over there.
Very good. Michael says, who's your competition?
All right, Michael, we can address that here. These are the typical answers we get straight from students when they look for housing. This isn't just our own determination or our research. This is where they go, and this is the problem with where they go. It doesn't really solve the core of their problem. It sort of gives them a patch, right? Where, okay, I'm good for the next few months or I'm good for the next year. But if I want to look for another place, let's say it didn't turn out well, had a bad roommate, they have to go through the same process again, all over. We're a solution, right? So once you get your score with us and your house with us, you can rotate even within our own ecosystem, however you want, right? So, and that's going to be growing. So these are our main competitors. If you want to look at just housing platforms, you can look at a company called Bungalow and For Stay. I think Forestay is not very big in the US, pretty big in Europe, but Bungalow has some presence here. Again, they do require social security numbers and all of that. What they do is they master lease places, furnish it up and rent it per room, which is not really what we do, but they're in the housing space and they're a comparable company that you can check out also.
Very good. I've got a question, Carl. How or has the pandemic affected international student travel to the States or even new students coming to the States to go to school?
Yeah, last year I was scared because we hadn't launched yet. I was still developing it, and borders were closing, and people couldn't move, etc. One thing that I think not a lot of people, unless you were in the space, knew, international students could still travel as long as they had their visa. They could, so tourists couldn't travel, right? So tourism and all of that travel industry was dead, but international students came and went, right? All my friends went back home in July, June, all the way through December, even when borders were closed, to visit family and come back. As long as you had a negative COVID test, you were fine, right? One thing did get, and complete transparency, one thing did get pauses, because consulates in their home countries had reduced operations. A lot of them couldn't get the visa stamp either on time to be here or at the same rate. So that slowed the growth, right? But if you had it or you acquired it, you could come to the US, go however you could. But this year, things have been much more open, and the pace has picked back up. So pretty optimistic for the future because the growth is just sustained. People who could not come here last year for the start of their program are coming this year on top of the people who are starting their program now. So it's, and universities, especially on the West Coast, because they lost a bit of money last year, are over admitting the cash paying students, which are international students. So you're getting more international students admitted than you would typically have, for all those factors combined, right? So it's sort of a push and the push and the push towards that growth.
Do you see non-international students trying to use your service because you built these networks with the property managers and landlords?
Yes, and we don't turn them away, right? This is something we're sort of exploring too. Since our name isn't just housing only international students, right? This is our card, this is our market, this is who we are. But we have used international students as anchor tenants. For example, if there's a 3-bedroom apartment and an international student comes to us and says, hey, I want to move here, but I'll need roommates, right? And we have people applying who are not international students, we'll match them together, or they can come with roommates, right? So even if they're not international students, because of the model we have and the relationships we have with the schools, we get non-international students come to us also, and we're also able to monetize them in the same way. Of course, they won't have a hub score and don't contribute to the actual algorithm, but they contribute to the company's success still because they'll be paying rent, right? So that's another avenue that we're exploring of how do we capture that. We didn't want to go that route too early so as to not look like everybody else, because people just cast a wide net. Hey, we do student housing, whoever can come, right? But we aim to be a solution so that whenever you want to house an international student, we come to mind, you think of HUDs, and then whoever comes with them, happy to have them too.
Very good. Charlie, this is a great question, Charlie. Charlie says, how will you mitigate those landlords who take the side route after the first month or so, or attaining an international student tenant through your business? So like sharing the Netflix account, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to mitigate against that?
Well, we had a lot of meetings based on that, because as we designed the business model, that was one of the first things we thought about. So the way we do it is an international student applies and gets their HUD score, has their account through us, and pays their rent through us also. So we make it very easy for that to happen. So it's just click of a button as you would pay any other rent, right, at any established place. So since they pay their rent through us, the landlord also has an account where they can withdraw or set up automatic payments, so it lands on the first. So the landlord's not really any different. They still get the money as soon as the student pays, but the student pays through us, we keep our cut first, and then the landlord gets paid. Happens really fast, but that's how we protect our stream of revenue. Now, the next question is, how do you, because that's like, okay, the first term of the lease, but how do you protect the next term of the lease? Because what if the landlord just goes to the student and say, hey, renew with me and I'll give you $100 off or whatever? Well, we jump in front of that 2-3 months before the lease ends. We have the information of when it will. We say, hey, renew your lease or find a place with us and you'll get this, you'll get that. So we just jump in front of it. We're like, hey, we'll give you $100 off per month, or you'll win this, you'll participate in that. And one thing that really incentivizes, and I can't believe I didn't mention that before, through our partnerships, whenever we get an international student from a university and they're able to find housing with us, a portion of that revenue goes towards an international student housing fund or scholarship fund for future terms. So, hey, as long as you're within our ecosystem, you can apply to that scholarship, you can apply to that fund. Maybe you get a month worth of rent, maybe you get a year's worth of rent, right? Depending on how it goes. So it's really creating that ecosystem for the student to have a sunk cost and to feel the opportunity cost of moving away from it. It's like, yeah, sure, you're gonna charge me $50 less a month or whatever less if I do it outside, but is it really more convenient? Like, do I have to Venmo you now? Do I have to write checks? And for us, we're developing solutions where they can pay from international bank accounts, so their family can help them pay rent, right? So now, do they have to pay fees to send me money so I can pay you? That takes 2-3 days. So it becomes really inconvenient to not house with us, right? So that's what we're basing it off of. And yeah, just people are really smart. People are really smart out there, but we like to think we're smart too. So
I love that you've thought about that and thought about how to circumvent that. So I love that. Very good. Any other questions for Carl?
Let's see here.
See if we've got any in the chat hiding there.
And thank you, Sarah, for pasting the link all the time. I like that. And our admin too.
Any additional questions? While you guys are thinking of any last questions, I'll jump in and I'll say, first and foremost, I'll say thank you to Carl for joining us this evening. This has been a pleasure. And I love that, because of course, I'm not going to make believe I didn't see the pitch deck at the bottom of the page. I did, right? But it adds so much more value when you present it versus just reading it from myself, and how you put context to everything and kind of put it all together. So this has been, I think a great experience, very, very well put together. I mean, I feel like you've thought about everything, and so you really are the strategist that you claim to be. To the community, if this is something that has resonated with you this evening, please go on to the WeFunder site, do your due diligence, consider adding Carl's business to your portfolio. But as I say every single week, as important as investing with Carl is, I think even more importantly, we want you to share this link. Share it with everyone you know. Tell people about it. If people who are young people who are in school, tell them about it, right? Get Carl into their university, having partnerships with their universities, and let's see this thing spread across the country, because there are international students in every single college and university. So when you talk about scalability, I mean, Carl's got a long way to go. I mean, we talked to him in 5 years, he may only be halfway across the country at that point, when you think about all the universities, right, that need this type of service. So, please share the link, share it, share it, share it, share it on your social media, share it with your friends. Just go ahead and email it to everybody in your mailing list, because people need to know that these solutions are out there, but more importantly, they need to know that these startups are out there allowing us to get an early seat at the table, right? And early seats at the table mean that if there is a liquidity event, then there is more money to be made when you are an early investor than when you wait for it to become a public company. That's not Tawana saying it, that's facts, right? So, and that's the reason we're here, is to support these founders. So please share, 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 share. We've got one more question. Sarah says, can you talk about what other positions you're hiring for? Very good, Sarah.
Very good question, Sarah. Right now, what we'll be looking for are in 3 departments. We're gonna look for a junior marketing person pretty soon, just to help with to scale our operations there, because we're not a really, really big team, but we do run pretty lean. So we're gonna have someone else to manage our either social media community and really do a lot of copywriting. We're going to be hiring on our tech roles too, because of the advantages that we have and the emphasis that we're putting on building that competitive advantage. And then we'll also have a 1 or 2 finance roles open, but that's a bit farther out, maybe 4 months ish. But you can also always keep my information nearby. Ask Tawana, she can share it. And Tawana, feel free to share my email. People can reach out, and I'll be happy to set up a few meetings here and there, or even another more private panel where maybe 5 to 10 people want to attend and have more specific questions. And I saw a question that disappeared. It's on the WeFunder page, but the investment starts at the lowest $100. So low barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah says in the chat, she says she'd love to see this program rolled out at HBCUs.
Yeah, me too.
Carl said me too. No, that's great. Very good. Oh, good. We've got another question.
Mm-hmm.
Lurana, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I didn't. Can you list the schools that you will partner with? All of them, eventually.
Pretty much. I can tell you what we're prioritizing. We are prioritizing schools that fit a certain model. So schools that have a high concentration of international students and are in a high college population, right? So, and we have a whole running list that I can find, but basically a few of them are NYU, UCSD, which we were able to land, UCLA, UC Berkeley, and UT Austin is a pretty big one. So those are the first schools that we'll be targeting, but more so than the schools, we're moving into those markets, right? Because the schools are a really good way, but each school is going to have something different that they want, or something different that they like, or different processes, different red tapes. Because the University of San Diego was pretty 1, 2, 3, let's go. Medium-sized private institution, but UC San Diego was public institution, massive. So we had to go through a lot more processes. Just to answer your questions, those are the first schools we're going to be prioritizing. But we don't have really a limit of who we can partner with. As long as you have international students who need housing, we'll hope to be there and partner with you.
Very good. Thank you for that question. Sarah says, yes, Texas is a huge opportunity market.
Yes.
And Cherie, our CEO, said, great presentation.
Thank you.
Very good. Good, Carl. Any final words from you?
Just always feel free to reach out with any questions you may have. Again, you can find my information from Tawana if you want to drop it in the chat or whatever.
If
Actually,
you want to go ahead and put it in the chat, let's put it in the chat.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So you can find, this is my email. You can email me anytime. It's just carl@hudsinternational.com. I'll drop my LinkedIn also if you want to connect there, which is where I initially connected with Tawana. So I'll paste that in a moment here. Just feel free to reach out. I'm big on communication. So even if you won't participate in the round, but you like what you're seeing, or maybe you like something from my story or my path, or you just have a question about anything.
Or if you've got a property by one of these universities Carl just mentioned, if you're interested in buying a property and you want to partner with him to get tenants, I see all kind of connection opportunities here.
Exactly. Thank you. So just communicate whatever you need or however it fits your style. I'm open. Just keep an eye out for us and hopefully we can be back with good news.
Wonderful. Carl, thank you so much again. Family, please share Carl's campaign. We put it in the chat multiple times throughout the evening. Please share. Please do your due diligence. Consider investing in Carl. I'm not a financial planner. This is not an endorsement by any means. However, we have presented Carl to you to present his idea. And if you like what you heard, we've given you all of the ways upon which you can add this to your portfolio. But more than anything else, I'm going to say it one last time. Share this campaign. Share, so that more people can hear about what this young man and his team of amazing young people have done here and the problem that they've experienced that they now have solved so that all of the international students that come behind them don't have to experience it anymore. And I think that is the most amazing thing, solving real world problems for real world people. So thank you so much, Carl, for taking the time to spend with us and for putting your heart and soul into this project, because I can see it.
My pleasure. I think we have a last question kind of sneak in here.
Oh, we did sneak, Charles. Will there be another round in the future?
So first off, Charles is my brother's name, so I hope that's not him trying to finesse me, but there will be more funding rounds, I anticipate. I can't tell you if it's going to be a crowdfunding round again, because like bigger rounds will probably be a Series A or an actual seed round. So within the next 18 months, yes, there will probably be another round. It'll be a seed or Series A round, at which point you can decide whether you stay on board or liquidate, someone buys you out, etc. Just so you can understand the timeline. And typically, it'll be maybe 2 or 3 times evaluation if I put it moderately, but if we do a good job, might be even higher. But yes, there will be future rounds. I can't guarantee that it'll be crowdfunding, but that's not the goal for now. And I see you're from Philly, so okay, brothers not in blood, but still.
Very good. All right, any last call for questions? All right, going once, going twice. All right, Carl, thank you. And if you need anything, you remember the community now. So we're here for you. Don't be a stranger. We actually have last week's entrepreneur that pitched to us. Dwayne is in the participants list. So he's coming and he's joining us now. So you are welcome to do the same. You now have a community behind you, to rally behind you, to share this, to help you with anything you need. When you start, considering those positions that you're hiring, come back here and do a shout out in our Facebook group and let us know what you're looking for.
Appreciate it. And I'll definitely be back to look at future pitch videos too. So
wonderful.
I'm on the newsletter, so great.
Good. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Carl.
Appreciate it.
Good night, everyone.